Welcome to The Wounded Christian. I'm your host, John Piper. Today's episode is the first in a 4-part series entitled, Who Am I? In this series, I'll be looking at who we are and why knowing who we are is important. If you've been a listener for a while, you'll probably have wondered why there's been such a gap in episodes. If you've been listening from the beginning, you'll be used to a sporadic nature in which these episodes are released. This podcast doesn't make any money, and it takes time to write, record, and produce. The reason why the releases of the new episode is sporadic is because writing them is usually based on when I get inspiration. But this last gap in episodes wasn't for that reason. If you've listened to me for any time, and if you've read my book, I hope that you've come to realize that I'm a very open and often raw person. I do not shy away from sharing the bad things that have happened, but I always aim to then point back to Jesus to show how he intervened. I am very aware that many of you have overcome or are still overcoming various levels of trauma. So before I continue, I want to give you a trigger warning. If you continue to listen to this episode, I will mention some aspects of mental health, including suicidal thoughts. I hope that by the end of this episode, you will see the hope through the pain. But if this is something that you can't handle at the moment, then I completely understand. So now, I want to take you back to shortly after the last episode that I released back in November of 2023. In September of 2023, I developed a persistent and chronic cough. I just couldn't shake it, and nothing that the doctor gave me seemed to help. They kept telling me nothing was wrong. Towards the middle of November, I still had the cough, but I also started to develop chest pains. My neck hurt, my left shoulder hurt, my chest hurt, and I couldn't feel my left arm. Now, if you Google those symptoms, it will tell you it's all the signs of a heart attack. So I was a little bit concerned, as you can imagine. I'm too young for a heart attack, so I knew it couldn't be that. But I went to the doctor, who did x-rays, and guess what? They said nothing was wrong. Towards the end of November, it was discovered that actually something was wrong. I had a disc in my neck that was swollen, and it was trapping the nerve that went along my shoulder and down my left arm. The constant, violent coughing had caused the swelling in the disc. So my doctor put me on gabapentin to control the pain and to wait for the disc to repair itself. And that, my dear friends, was the start of a very dark period of time. If you're in the USA, you will have seen adverts on TV that list all of the side effects of various medications. When they say things like, if this medication causes thoughts of suicide, contact your doctor immediately, I'd always assumed that the doctor would then do something about those side effects. I have never had suicidal thoughts before, so this was all new to me. This medication had some very nasty side effects, and there were times that I very seriously considered killing myself. So I contacted the doctor's office, and I was not ready for their response, which was, well, that isn't one of the side effects. Well, receptionist, I've never considered killing myself before, and the papers that came with this medication lists it as a possible side effect. I decided at that point that the excruciating pain from the trapped nerve was better than killing myself, and so I stopped taking that medication. The suicidal thoughts started to subside, and the dark cloud started to lift. And in time, the disc healed itself enough that the pain became tolerable. But the dark cloud didn't leave completely, and in fact, it got worse. Between January and May of 2024, I was put on a series of medications for other conditions. And each of these medications affected my mental health in ways even worse than the gabapentin. I went through an even darker time with each medication. At this point, I had a different primary care doctor because I'd fired the previous one. This doctor was aware that I, apparently, have very unique reactions to medications, especially ones that affect mental health. But even after stopping each medication, the dark cloud remained. I'd be fine on some days, and close to ending it on others. With each day that was dark, I was very aware that this was caused by the remnants of the medication. But honestly, that didn't make it any easier. I am now at a point where the dark times are momentary, rather than being all day. And they are getting less and less regular. I'm finally back at a stage where I feel relatively normal. Through this, and the help of a qualified therapist, I've come to understand that the dark cloud is more than just about the medication. While the medication itself caused the mental health issues, it also uncovered some deeply hidden beliefs I didn't know I had about myself. Memories that I'd repressed surfaced and were used as fuel to drive me towards a lie about who I was. Feelings of worthlessness and failure were battling in my mind and on my lips, and driving that dark cloud even darker. If you're still with me, if you're still listening, you might be wondering, what on earth can John teach us when he is so broken? And some of you might be about to switch off, but I'd encourage you to stay. I believe that the best person to learn from is someone who's actually been where you are, to some degree. And I believe that what I'm about to share with you in this series is of great benefit for anyone who is battling these negative thoughts that say you aren't worthy. So, over the next few episodes, I want to examine the question, who am I? We can only defeat these negative thoughts that invade our minds if we know who we truly are. So let's begin. Who am I? Episode 1. I am broken, and that's okay. I know that this seems like a really weird thing to start with, but it's important. Some Christians, even some churches, have a belief that if you're a Christian, then you are fixed the minute you get saved. Some see being broken as a failure, and that kind of teaching is what led to words coming out of my mouth in my darkest moments of, you are a complete failure. Some churches preach that mental health issues are a sign of weakness, and that strong Christians do not struggle with them. Some others preach that mental health issues are akin to demon possession. If you've ever been in either of these churches, I apologize for their ignorance and stupidity. Any Christian who says that weakness or being broken is a failure is deluded. And I say that with the authority of the scriptures. So let's for a minute look at something that Paul wrote about his chronic weakness. In 2 Corinthians 12 verses 6 to 9, Paul writes this, and this is from the New Living Translation. If I wanted to boast, I would be no fool in doing so, because I would be telling the truth. But I won't do it, because I don't want anyone to give me credit beyond what they can see in my life or hear in my message. even though I have received such wonderful revelations from God. So, to keep me from being proud, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. 3 different times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness." So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardship, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Now, I can't tell you what the thorn in Paul's side was. I've heard a lot of terrible explanations over the years by people who claim to know. But just for a moment, consider that possibly Paul's thorn could have been depression. I'm not claiming it was, but just imagine if it was. So, if Paul's thorn was depression, what would it tell us? It would tell us that Paul was broken. Was Paul's brokenness a sign of failure? Certainly not. But it does tell us that we can boast in our weaknesses, because only through that weakness can Christ show his power. If we believe that Christians shouldn't have a weakness, then being broken is a failure. Then we would have to believe that Paul was also a failure and discard all of his teachings. So as the dark cloud descends and the voices in your head tell you that you're broken, that you're weak, the response needs to be yes. Yes. Yes, I'm broken. Yes, I'm weak. I'm as broken and I'm as weak as Paul. And like him, I am strong because I am weak. That affirmation will hopefully nullify the negative thoughts of failure, because we are embracing the idea that being broken and being weak is a positive thing. Celebrating and boasting in our broken weakness is exactly what Paul did. And that truth flies in the face of the lies that the voices tell us. So, who am I? I am broken, I am weak, and I am thankful that I am. Friends, this episode may have been a little unexpected. It probably didn't go where you thought it was going to go. The next episode is going to be a little bit different. This episode, the answer to who am I was, I am broken, I am weak, and I am thankful for that. The next episode asks the question, who am I again? And in the next episode, the answer is going to be, I am worthy. So tune in next time to hear how to battle the voices in your head that tell you that you are not worthy.